Captain Marcus Johnson stood in the control room of Outpost 703 and watched the stars. The colony had been his home for 12 years. He knew every street, every building, and every person who lived here. The outpost had 3,000 colonists, all of them working together to survive on the edge of human space. The work was hard. The people were tough. Nobody came to the frontier expecting an easy life. They came because they wanted to build something. They came because Earth was crowded and expensive. Out here, a person could own land, could create something new, could matter. The outpost was built on a flat plain with mountains in the distance. The buildings were simple and strong. Water came from underground. Food came from hydroponics and from hunting the local animals. The colony had 3 mining operations that dug rare metals from the ground. They traded these metals with alien merchants who came through the nearby space station. The alien merchants found humans strange. Humans were strong for their size, but not as strong as Krell warriors. Humans were smart, but not as smart as the Vex Collective. Humans could survive in bad conditions, but many species had evolved in worse places. The aliens saw humans as interesting traders. They saw them as people who worked hard, but they did not see them as dangerous or powerful. Marcus did not mind this. He had been born on a Deathworld colony. His parents had told him stories about Earth, about a planet that was harsh and unforgiving. Earth had produced tough people. Those people had spread across the galaxy. The old stories said that humans had fought great battles and won against impossible odds. But those days were long gone. Now humans just lived and worked and tried to build peaceful communities. Marcus was a tall man with dark hair and a serious face. He had trained at the military academy when he was young. He had served on 3 different colonies before being assigned to command this one. He was good at his job. He made fair decisions. He made sure the colony had enough resources. He made sure people were safe. The control room was quiet. Lieutenant Lisa Morton worked at her station, checking the communication systems. She had been with Marcus for 5 years. She was smart and quick, and she caught problems before they became big problems. Dr. Robert Grant was in his office down the hall, working on research about the local plants and animals. The message came in without warning. The emergency beacon screamed through the communication system. It was the old protocol, the one they had not heard in a long time. It was not like a normal message. It was not like a radio transmission. It was a signal that cut through all the noise of space and demanded attention. Lisa's hands moved fast across her station. Her eyes went wide. She looked at Marcus. "Captain, we have a distress signal. It is from Research Station 9. They are under attack." Marcus moved closer to the communication station. "Put it through." The voice that came through was broken and desperate. "This is Research Station 9. We are under attack. The force is massive. They are destroying everything. We cannot stop them. We cannot fight them. We need help. We need help now." There was a sound in the background. It was loud and terrible. It was the sound of explosions and weapons fire. "Research Station 9, this is Outpost 703. We copy your message. What is your status? We are losing hull integrity. We have maybe 2 hours. If you can send help, send it now." The signal went dead. Marcus stood still for a moment. He thought about what he needed to do. Research Station 9 was far away. They studied alien life forms and collected data. There were maybe 50 people there. He could not reach them with the colony's ships. The colony had transport vessels and mining ships. They did not have military ships. They did not have weapons that could fight an unknown enemy. He turned to Lisa. "Send out a general emergency broadcast to all human colonies. Every colony that can receive this message needs to know what happened." Lisa nodded. She started typing commands into the system. What are we telling them? Marcus took a deep breath. He thought about the old stories his parents had told him. He thought about the humans who had come to this galaxy centuries ago. He thought about the protocol that had not been used for 100 years. Send the Deathworlder Armada call, he said. Lisa stopped typing. She looked at him. Sir, that protocol is ceremonial. It is historical. It was last used in the war against the Collective. It is not active. It is not an official channel. I know what it is, Marcus said. Send it anyway. All frequencies. All channels. Every human who has a radio will hear it. That is a big step, Lisa said. The Colonial Council might not approve it. Get me the Council on Secure Communication, now. Lisa worked quickly. Within 5 minutes, the Council members were connected. There were 8 of them. They included Marcus, Lisa, Robert Grant, 2 mining directors, the agriculture manager, the medical director, and the chief engineer. They appeared on the screens in the control room, some from their homes, some from their offices. Marcus told them what had happened. He told them about the research station. He told them about the unknown attack force. Director of Mining Paul Hughes spoke first. We cannot help them. We have no military capability. We should protect ourselves instead. I agree, said Medical Director Catherine Peters. We should seal the outpost and wait for this to pass. Robert Grant did not say anything. He just listened. Marcus looked at each of them. We have a choice. We can hide and hope the danger does not reach us. Or we can call for help. Real help. I want to send the Deathworlder Armada call. The council room went silent. Lisa spoke quietly. If we send that call, every human colony within 200 light years will hear it. They will understand that we believe we are under threat. They will understand that we are asking them to respond. Will they come? Asked Hughes. I do not know, said Marcus. But I know that we have to try. Robert Grant finally spoke. My father told me that during the last Great War, the Armada call brought forces that nobody thought existed. He said humans had hidden their strength for a long time. He said when they finally revealed it, the enemy was shocked. Paul Hughes shook his head. That was a long time ago. The galaxy is peaceful now. The galaxy is peaceful until it is not, Grant replied. Marcus waited for the others to speak. Slowly, one by one, they agreed. Even Hughes, in the end, agreed. Lisa turned to her station. She activated the protocol that had not been used in over 100 years. Her fingers moved across the controls. The ancient signal went out into space, traveling across all frequencies, across all human channels. The Deathworlder Armada call was now active. In that moment, Marcus did not know what would happen. He did not know if anyone would answer. He did not know if this choice would save the colony or doom it. He only knew that a human station was dying, and humanity would answer. He hoped he was right. The signal traveled through space at the speed of light. It moved through communication networks that humans had built over centuries. It reached space stations and colonies and military bases. In every place where humans had set up operations, the old alert sounded. On the Core World Military Station, Admiral Catherine Wells sat in her office. She was reading reports about ship maintenance. The fleet under her command was old. Most of the ships were from the last war, 50 years ago. The government had decided to keep them in service instead of building new ones. Money was tight. Peace made people think defense was not important. When the Deathworlder Armada call came through, every alarm on the station activated at once. Catherine stood up from her desk. She had trained for 40 years. She had heard stories about this signal. Every military officer learned about it in academy. But she had never expected to hear it in her lifetime. She rushed to the command center. Officers were already moving. The call had reached them all at the same time. They knew what to do because it was written in their training, written in their protocols, written in their duty. Commander David Hall was waiting for her when she arrived. He was her operations officer, a man who had been in the military for 35 years. His face was serious. "Admiral," he said, "the Deathworlder Armada call just went out. It came from Outpost 703, the colony at the frontier. We have a distress signal connected to it. Unknown hostile force attacking a research station." Catherine nodded. "Start mobilization. Full alert. I want every ship that can move ready for departure in 4 hours." "Yes, Admiral," David said. He turned and started giving orders. The station came alive. Ships that had been parked in dock suddenly had crews running to them. Engineers started engines that had not run in months. Weapons specialists checked systems. Supply officers began loading food and ammunition. Soldiers from the barracks moved to their assigned positions. This was what they had trained for. This was what the signal meant. At the same time, across human space, the same thing was happening. On the mining world of Kepler Station, the commander received the signal. Mining equipment was shut down. Miners who had weapons training were called to duty. Transport ships that usually carried ore were prepared for combat. On the research world of Canton Base, the director of operations read the message and knew what it meant. This was bigger than science. This was survival. On the colony at Outer Reach, where families were trying to build homes and create new lives, the warning went out. Military personnel reported to duty. Everyone else moved to the protected shelters. The response was not organized by a central authority. There was no prime minister giving orders. There was no single command. Instead, the response came from hundreds of years of human tradition. When the Deathworlder Armada call went out, every human settlement knew what it meant. Someone was dying. Humanity was needed. Ships began to move. Ensign Ana Torres was on duty at the fighter base when the call came through. She was young, only 22 years old, and she had just completed her pilot training. She had never seen real combat. She had only flown simulations. When the alarm sounded, she ran to her fighter. Other pilots were doing the same. They did not question the order. They did not debate whether they should go. They moved because they had trained for this moment. Engineer Frank Patterson was working on a battleship that was supposed to be scrapped. The hull was old and the systems were worn, but the order came to prep the ship for deployment. Frank and his team moved through the vessel, checking every system, testing every weapon, making sure the ship would run. They worked for 10 hours without stopping. When they finished, the ship was ready. It might have been old, but it was ready to fight. In the galactic station above the core world, the alien merchants and traders watched in confusion. They had never seen humans move like this before. They had only known humans as traders and explorers. They had only known them as people who kept to themselves and did not cause trouble. But now, thousands of human ships were moving. They were not moving randomly. They were moving with purpose. They were moving toward the colony that had sent out the distress call. The Krell ambassador sent an urgent message to the Galactic Council. The Vex Collective made an official inquiry. The Merchant Guild stopped all negotiations and watched. Admiral Catherine Wells stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the ships assemble. They came from different worlds and different bases. They came in different classes and different types. Some were destroyers. Some were cruisers. Some were transport ships. Some were barely armed. But they all came. She received a transmission from Outpost 703. It was Captain Marcus Johnson. "This is Outpost 703. We received your response to the Armada call. We thank you. Research Station 9 is still under attack. The unknown force is destroying everything. If there is anything you can do, please hurry. Catherine sent back a single message. "We are coming." Hold on. The fleet assembled was not the biggest military force in the galaxy. The Krell had more ships. The Vex had better technology. But the human fleet had something else. They had desperation. They had anger. They had the determination of a species that had survived on a harsh world for millions of years. David Hall stood next to Catherine and studied the tactical display. "All ships report ready status, Admiral. We have 342 vessels ready to move." Catherine had been expecting maybe 100 ships. She had been wrong. More colonies had responded than she thought possible. More people had answered the call than she had dared to hope. "Where's this enemy?" she asked. "Unknown, Admiral. The research station is at coordinate 779 Mark 113. The enemy signature stops at the edge of the system. We do not know what they are or where they came from." Catherine made her decision. Full speed to the research station. All ships. Break formation into attack vectors. I want us ready to engage when we arrive. The order went out. 342 human ships turned toward the distant star system. Their engines burned hot. They accelerated to maximum speed. Behind them, more ships were still being prepared. But these were the ones that were ready. They were Deathworlders. They were born from a harsh world. They had learned long ago that you did not survive by hiding. You survived by standing and fighting. You survived by helping your own, and they were coming. The fleet traveled through space for 3 days. The ships moved as fast as they could, but space was vast and distances were terrible. While they traveled, the crews learned what they were facing. The sensor teams collected data. They picked up signals from the destroyed systems. They found debris fields. They found the remains of planets. The first dead system was a surprise. There had been a small human outpost there, maybe 200 people. They found nothing left. The planet had been cracked. The orbital stations had been torn apart. There was no life. There were no survivors. The second system was worse. This one had a larger colony, 3,000 people. They found cities destroyed. They found farms burned. They found graves. Admiral Catherine Wells studied the reports in her command center. The enemy force was massive. It was not like anything in human records. It was not like the Krell Armada from the old war. It was something new. She sent a message to all ships. It was simple. We're going to hurt these people. We are going to stop them. We are going to make them pay for what they have done. On the flagship, in the corridors and the ready rooms, soldiers prepared for battle. They checked their weapons. They studied the enemy's weapon signatures. They tried to understand what they would be facing. Ensign Ana Torres sat in a pilot-ready room with other fighter pilots. They were studying attack patterns and defensive strategies. Nobody talked much. Everybody was scared. They knew they were going to fight something they did not understand. Has anyone ever seen an enemy like this? Asked a pilot named Stephen Cross. No, said Anna. Nobody has. An older pilot named James Murphy spoke up. He had been in the military for 10 years. Then we fight the way humans have always fought. We are tough. We are smart. We find the weakness. Engineer Frank Patterson was in the engine room of his old battleship. The engines were running hot. The reactor was producing maximum power. Frank and his team had fixed 3 problems already. The ship was old, but it was working harder than it ever had before. Keep that reactor stable, Frank told his crew. If it goes down, we all go down. His team nodded. They worked without complaining. They knew what was at stake. Back on Outpost 703, Marcus Johnson watched the same reports. He thought about his parents, who had lived on a colony in the inner systems. He thought about the stories they had told him about the old wars. His father had fought in one of them. His father had told him that the only difference between winning and losing was the will to keep fighting. Marcus had never really believed that. Not until now. Now he understood that his father was right. On the third day of travel, something happened that changed everything. Captain Marcus Johnson received a message from the Galactic Council. 3 observers were being sent to travel with the fleet. They wanted to see what humans would do. They wanted to understand how humans would fight. One observer was Krell. One was Vex. One was a merchant guild representative. They arrived in small diplomatic ships and docked with the human fleet. Admiral Catherine Wells met them in the conference room. The Krell observer was a big warrior named Krell 7. The Vex representative was a collective consciousness called Unit 12. The Merchant Guild observer was a businessman named Derek. "We are interested in seeing how you respond to this threat," said Unit 12. The Vex spoke through a translation device, turning thoughts into words. "Your species has not fought a real war in 50 years. That does not mean we have forgotten how," said Catherine. "We shall see," said Krell 7. His voice was deep and hard. Lieutenant Lisa Morton was in the ship's analysis center. She had been studying the enemy's attack patterns for 12 hours without rest. She looked at the debris field. She looked at the weapon signatures. She looked at how the enemy had destroyed the colonies. She saw something. The enemy ships were powerful. They had weapons that could crack planets. They had armor that could withstand most attacks. But when Lisa looked at the electromagnetic signatures, she saw something that made her stop. The enemy ships generated massive electromagnetic pulses when they fired. It was the way their weapons worked. The energy moved through space in waves. These waves were strong enough to reach across entire systems. Lisa had an idea. What if you reversed those waves? What if you used the enemy's own power against them? She worked through the calculations. She wrote the code. She tested it in simulation. Every test showed the same result. If the human ships could synchronize an electromagnetic pulse with the enemy's own output, they could disrupt the enemy's control systems. That it was not a guarantee. But it was something. Lisa took the data to Admiral Catherine Wells. She showed her the calculations. She showed her the simulation results. Catherine studied it carefully. "This could work?" "Yes, Admiral. Not perfectly, but it could give us an advantage." Catherine nodded. "Good work, Lieutenant. Tell all ships about this discovery. We need everyone to understand the strategy." The information spread through the fleet. Weapons specialists studied it. Engineers modified the ship systems to be ready. Pilots understood that they would have a moment, just one moment, when the enemy would be weaker. One moment was all humans needed. Marcus Johnson received the message about the electromagnetic pulse strategy. He read it carefully. He thought about his father again. His father had always said that human strength came not from being bigger or stronger, but from being smarter. Humans could see connections that others missed. Humans could think in ways that solved problems. The Krell observer, Krell 7, watched the preparations. He saw the ships being modified. He saw the strategies being prepared. He had fought humans in the past, in small conflicts. But he had never seen anything like this. The humans were not panicking. They were not trying to match the enemy's power. They were preparing to fight smart. On the 4th day, the fleet detected the enemy position. They were waiting at Research Station 9. The enemy force was massive. It was bigger than anything humans had brought to this fight. The numbers were against them, but the humans did not hesitate. Admiral Catherine Wells stood on the bridge of her flagship and gave the final order. "All ships, weapons hot. Prepare for engagement. This is the moment. This is why we came." The human fleet moved toward the enemy like a storm approaching from the horizon. They came slowly at first, then faster. They came with determination and anger and the weight of 300 years of human history. Anna Torres sat in her fighter. her hands on the controls. She was terrified and excited and ready all at once. This was what she had trained for. This was what every human had trained for. Frank Patterson stood in the engine room of his old ship. The reactor was singing, burning hot, producing maximum power. He knew his ship was going to be pushed to its limit today. Marcus Johnson watched from the outpost. He could not help anymore. The decision was made. The fleet was here. The battle was beginning. The moment had come. Everything changed. Dr. Robert Grant and the surviving researchers of Research Station 9 sat in the deepest shelter of the station. There was not much shelter. The station had been built for science, not for war. The walls around them were thin and getting weaker. They had lost communication with the outside world 4 hours ago. The station was failing. The power was failing. The oxygen was low. Robert had gathered everyone into a single section and sealed the doors. He was rationing what they had. He did not believe rescue was coming. Nobody had answered their distress call. Nobody was going to arrive in time. There were 42 of them left. They had started with 50. 8 people had died when the enemy attacked. 8 people had given their lives trying to hold the outer sections of the station. Robert stood with the survivors. They were tired and scared and hungry. A woman named Maria Lopez sat near him. She was a biologist. She had come to this station because she wanted to study alien life forms. Now she was going to die because of alien life forms. "Is this how it ends?" she asked. "Yes," said Robert. He would not lie to her. "It looks like this is how it ends." A young researcher named Kevin asked, "Will they blame us for this? Will people think we failed?" "No," said Robert. "We did what we could. We fought. We survived longer than anyone had a right to survive. That is not failure." The wall shook. The sound of explosions was getting closer. The outer sections of the station were being torn apart. It would reach them soon. Hours maybe. Or minutes. Robert thought about his research. He thought about all the data they had collected. He thought about all the work they had done. It would all be lost. The knowledge would disappear with them. Then something happened. The sensors detected new ships. The enemy force did not stop attacking. But new signals appeared on the sensors. Ships. Human ships. Many of them. Robert's hands were shaking. He looked at the sensor readings again. It was true. The human armada was arriving. "Get me communication," he said to the young technician at the only working station. "Now, immediately." The technician worked fast. "I have them, Doctor. They are responding to our beacon. This is Research Station 9 to Human Fleet. We are here. We are still here. We need immediate rescue." A voice came back through the speaker. It was Admiral Catherine Wells. "Research Station 9, we see you. We are engaged with the enemy. Hold position. Hold your survivors. We are coming." On the human ships, the battle was happening at the speed of light and faster. The enemy force was immense. Some of the human ships took damage immediately. 2 small transport vessels exploded. Another ship lost its main reactor. But the humans kept coming. Ensign Ana Torres flew her fighter in close to one of the massive enemy vessels. The enemy opened fire. Ana moved her ship with precision and speed. She had been born on a Deathworld colony. She had learned young that hesitation meant death. She moved fast. She moved smart. Other pilots flew with her. They came in waves. They hit the enemy's defenses. The enemy fired back. Some pilots did not return to their ships, but the humans kept coming. Engineer Frank Patterson monitored the reactor from the engine room. It was operating at beyond maximum capacity. The ship was taking damage. A missile hit the starboard side. An explosion shook the entire vessel. "Hull breach in Section 7. someone reported. "Seal it," Frank said. "Keep that reactor running." His team worked without complaint. They knew what they were doing. They had trained for this. They had been born on worlds that did not forgive failure. The human ships moved in a pattern that confused the enemy. The enemy was used to fighting opponents who matched power with power. They tried to outgun everyone else. The humans were different. They moved in coordination. They flanked. They hit weak points. Admiral Catherine Wells coordinated the entire battle from her command center. She had studied the enemy's movements for 4 days. She understood how they fought. She knew where they were strong and where they were weak. "All ships, prepare for electromagnetic pulse sequence," she ordered. The command went out to every human ship. The weapons specialists were ready. They had modified the weapon systems. They had practiced the timing that the moment came. 200 human ships fired at exactly the same moment. The electromagnetic pulse traveled through space like a wave of invisible force. It hit the enemy fleet. The pulse disrupted their systems. Their weapons went silent. Their shields flickered. For 10 seconds, the enemy was helpless. The human ships attacked with everything they had. The weapons fire was terrible. Ships that had been hidden in the enemy formation suddenly revealed themselves. They had been waiting for exactly this moment. The enemy force started to break apart. Some of the enemy ships tried to flee, but the human pilots were faster. The human ships had been built for one thing. They had been built to survive. They had been built to keep fighting even when the odds were bad. The battle lasted 2 hours. When it was over, the enemy force was destroyed. 17 human ships had been destroyed. 43 more were damaged. 300 soldiers and crew had died. But the enemy fleet was gone. Admiral Catherine Wells received the damage reports. She did not celebrate. She gave the next order. "Send rescue teams to Research Station 9. Get those people out. Now." Transport ships broke formation from the fleet. They moved toward the dying research station. The rescue teams were ready. They had medics and equipment. On the station, Robert Grant watched the transport ship approach. The docking collar connected. The airlock opened. A human rescue team entered the shelter. "Dr. Grant?" the team leader asked. He was a young man named Derek. He had a weapon and a determined face. "That is me," said Robert. "We are here to get you out. All of you. Move now. The station is failing." The survivors moved quickly. They climbed through corridors that were breaking apart. The station was dying around them. But the rescue teams were moving them forward, pushing them toward the transport ship. Maria Lopez was the last one to board the transport. The station exploded behind the ship as it pulled away. Robert watched from the window of the transport. Research Station 9 was gone. All their work, all their research, gone. But they were alive. The transport ship moved away from the system, toward the human fleet. Robert saw the damage to the human ships. He saw the cost of this victory. He understood now why the ancestors had called it the Deathworlder Armada. These people did not give up. These people did not stop fighting. These people were not afraid to die if it meant saving others. That was what humans were. On the planet below the system, Marcus Johnson received the message that the station had been evacuated. He received the message that the enemy force had been destroyed. He closed his eyes and thought about the ancestors of Earth. He thought about the harsh world that had created tough people. Those people had spread across the galaxy. Those people were still tough, and now the galaxy knew it. The battle was over. The stand had been made. Humanity had answered the call, and they had won. The victory reports came in over the next 3 days. The human fleet had destroyed the enemy force completely. No alien reinforcements came. No hidden forces revealed themselves. The threat was gone. The survivors from Research Station 9 were transported to Outpost 703. Dr. Robert Grant walked through the colony with Maria Lopez and the other researchers. They looked at the simple buildings and the open sky and understood that they had been given a second chance at life. Marcus Johnson met them at the landing site. Robert embraced him. "You came," Robert said. "You actually answered the call." "Of course we came," said Marcus. "That is what the Armada does." The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. They were not on any single planet. The Council met in stations and communication centers across the galaxy. The alien ambassadors appeared on screens and in person. They had been watching the human response. They had been collecting data. They had been waiting for this moment. The Krell ambassador spoke first. In Krell culture, respect came from power. The humans had demonstrated power. The ambassador admitted this openly. "Your species has shown capabilities that we did not know existed. We will need to reconsider our defensive strategies. We will need to prepare for the possibility of human military conflict. But we also respect what you have done. You saved your people. You did it with intelligence and coordination. This is respectable." The Vex Collective sent a message. The Vex were logical and analytical. They took time to process information. "We have reviewed the battle data. The human tactical approach was unconventional but effective. The use of electromagnetic pulse sequences shows advanced understanding of enemy systems. We recommend that the Council reclassify human military capability from secondary to primary threat level." This is logical. Even the Merchant Guild changed its assessment. The Merchant Guild director sent a formal message. "We have reconsidered human valuation for trade purposes. Humans are no longer considered low-risk trade partners. We will be implementing new protocols for human interaction. Humans are more valuable and more dangerous than we previously believed." The message was clear. The galaxy had been forced to see humanity differently. Back at Outpost 703, Admiral Catherine Wells received a promotion. She was made Supreme Commander of all human military forces in the outer sectors. It was a position that had not existed before. Now humanity needed a single leader to coordinate all the forces that had answered the call. She did not celebrate. She sent a message to all human colonies and all human ships. It was simple. "We have proven what we are. Now we have to prove what we can become." Marcus Johnson received a promotion as well. He was made a captain in the official human military hierarchy. He was given authority over the outer colonies. More importantly, he was given a message from the Council. The message said, "You made the hard choice. You called for help when you were alone. You showed that humans are willing to sacrifice for each other. This is the strength of our species." Ensign Ana Torres was promoted to pilot officer. She had flown 43 combat sorties. She had never lost a wingmate. She had survived when others had not. She received a medal and a new assignment. She would be training the next generation of human pilots. Engineer Frank Patterson's ship was ordered back to the shipyards for repairs. Frank was given command of a team to oversee the repairs. His old battleship would fly again. It would serve in the expanded human fleet. Krell 7, the Krell Observer, sent a personal message to Admiral Catherine Wells. In the message, he admitted something that no Krell had admitted in centuries. He said, "Your species is not what we thought. You are more than we believed possible. If we were enemies, I would fear you. I am glad we are not enemies." The message was significant. It meant that even the Krell, the warrior civilization that had fought for dominance since before humanity had left Earth, respected what humans had shown. 3 weeks after the battle, Marcus Johnson stood on a balcony of his command center. He looked out over Outpost 703. The colony was being rebuilt. New buildings were going up. New defenses were being installed. The colony was growing. The stars hung above him in the darkness of space. He thought about Earth. His parents had told him stories about that world. It had been harsh and cold and cruel, but it had created humans. It had created a species that would not give up. It had created a species that would fight for its own. Marcus remembered something his father had once told him. His father had said, "Humanity was born in fire and ice. We survived predators bigger than ourselves. We survived droughts and floods and diseases. We survived because we are stubborn. We survived because we work together. That is written into our blood." Marcus had not understood it when he was young. He understood it now. The ancient Deathworlders had come from a planet that did not care about them. The planet tried to kill them. The planet sent ice and heat and danger. And humans survived. They did not just survive. They adapted. They learned. They got smarter. When they came to space, they carried that same strength with them. They built colonies on worlds that would have killed lesser species. They developed technologies to survive in places where others could not. They learned to work together across impossible distances. The Deathworlder Armada was not a fleet of warships. It was the answer of a species that had been forced by nature to be tough. It was the response of people who had learned in their bones how to survive. The galaxy had learned something important in the last few days. It had learned that humans were not the peaceful traders everyone had thought. Humans were the descendants of survivors. Humans were the children of a death world. And when one of them called for help, they all answered. Marcus thought about the future. There would be more battles, probably. There would be more threats. The galaxy was vast and strange and dangerous. But now the galaxy knew that humanity would meet those threats with strength and intelligence and determination. The colony behind him was growing. The ships in orbit were being repaired and upgraded. The military academy was taking on new students. The Deathworlder Armada was being formalized into a real structure. Humanity had revealed its strength. It could not go back into hiding now, but that was not a loss. That was a victory. Humanity had spent centuries pretending to be harmless. Now the galaxy knew the truth. Humans were not harmless. Humans were dangerous, but humans were also loyal. Humans would fight for each other. Humans would sacrifice. Humans understood mercy and compassion. Humans understood that power was not just about weapons. Krell 7 and Unit 12. And all the alien observers had seen that. They had seen humans fight to save a station they did not have to save. They had seen humans risk everything for people they had never met. They had seen humans willing to die for the principle that no human would be left behind. That was the real message of the Deathworlder Armada. It was not that humans were strong. It was that humans were strong and good. Humans have power, and they used it to protect the weak. Marcus turned away from the balcony and walked back inside. He had reports to read. He had decisions to make. He had colonies to oversee. But he carried with him the knowledge of what his species was. He carried it in his bones, in his blood, in his heart. The Deathworlders had come to space. And they had come to stay. And the galaxy had learned that you did not underestimate the children of Earth. When they called, the Armada answered. And when the Armada answered, the galaxy listened. The story would be told for generations. It would be taught in academies. It would be studied by military strategists. It would be remembered as the moment when humanity revealed itself. But in the colonies and the ships and the bases, it would be remembered differently. It would be remembered as the moment when humans answered the call. When one of them was in danger, all of them came. That was humanity. That was the legacy of the Death World. That was the promise the ancestors had made when they first left Earth. And that promise would never be broken.